What's happening, Jets fans? Day 5 of free agency, March 15th, 2024. This is NYJ Ground Crew. I'm your host and crew chief, A.M. Pfeffer. Thank you for joining me. As always, post your comments and questions. We're going to get to it at the end of the show. Now, why am I wearing a shirt and tie today? Well, besides the fact that I respect you, my fellow brethren, and of course, the great respect for this team, the New York Football Jets, I wanted to dress like the accountant everybody often tells me that I look like. Why? We are going inside the numbers tonight, my friends. We have spent the last 4 days going over the signings. We have spent the last 4 days talking about who we still need on this team. And we're going to touch on that certainly, but we're going to do so through the cap, the dead cap, the salary cap itself. And we're going to understand why JD has made or not made some of the decisions he has through this first week of free agency. This is big stuff. I mean, depending on which side of the fence you fall on, you either think this man is still the savior of this team, or he is potentially an agent of the devil sent by the New England Patriots. Either way, that's what we need to discuss today. What exactly is going on? Where does the money lead us, or specifically, where does the money lead Joe Douglas in the decisions that he's making or not making? Let's start with this. I'm going to bring right into the screen right now the dead cap. This is probably where we need to start more than anything else. This number is huge, my friends. We are currently 6th in the league in dead cap money. And the first couple of years that JD took over this team, he did a great job of taking on no dead cap money. But here we are, and you can see very clearly here, we're close to $35 million at this point for 2024. And guess what? There's still probably a move to be made. That's Zach Wilson. At the end of the day, he's going to be off this team one way or the other, whether through trade, which doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon, or we've just got to cut the kid. And that's going to cost another over $11 million either way. So we're going to push this all the way up to about $45 million in dead cap. That's going to bring us into the top 5 in dead cap money. And you can take a look and see specifically the top 3 names, really the top 4 names, but just talk about the top 3 names right now. Tomlinson, Uzomah, Lawson. These were big losses. These guys at this point in time, in their what would have been essentially third year, should have been paying third and fourth year, should have been paying bigger dividends. They should still be on this team making big contributions. Instead, they're off, and we're taking massive cap casualties because of them. And again, this is absolutely affecting the decisions being made on offensive line, the wide receiver market, and obviously, can we sign another safety, or how does that look? And what we're doing for the future, because it's very important, and we all must keep this in mind right now. I'm talking about JD now, he has to keep the dead cap to a minimum after this year, because he's got some bigger signings coming up, some cornerstone signings for this team coming up, assuming he's still the general manager, and he needs to think and operate that way. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But again, look at what's going on your screen. The top 4 names alone, Tomlinson, Uzomah, Lawson, Brown, look what they're costing us in dead cap money. And once more, remember what it's going to cost us when Zach Wilson is off this team either way via trade. And to get him off the team in a trade, someone's got to take on his salary this year, which we're going to look at in just a moment, what the 2024 salaries are. But they've got to take on probably a sizable portion of that, or even if it's a small portion and we take on the rest, it's still dead cap money. If we let this guy go, it's over $11 million added to this already bloated number, which accounts for over 13% of what the cap is right now. Then you've got Jordan Whitehead, who's playing for another team, Mecole Hardman. Well, we all know about him, back to the Chiefs, and Quentin Jefferson, who a lot of people are very upset that he signed the 1-year deal with the Browns that he did, and we took on Javon Kinlaw instead. So you can almost add to Javon Kinlaw's number of what costs about $7 million this year, another 1.5 in dead cap that goes to Quentin Jefferson to play for another team, right? And why did we do that? Well, tear on both sides of his groin. He may or may not be ready for training camp, but there's decisions to be made. JD doesn't exactly like players who've been hurt. Same thing with Al Woods. I mean, he ruptured his Achilles as well, so we understand why he's off the team. But again, take a close look at this before I'm about to move on, and we might come back to this chart, but we're about to move on and talk about the 2024 salary cap. But this is the reason specifically why you're seeing the moves or not the moves being made just yet. Okay, let's take this out, and we're going to bring in the salary cap for this year. So let's take a closer look at what's going on here. The top name, this is Sport Track, by the way. This is wrong. This is incorrect. The cap hit for Mosley has been changed. Unfortunately, I can't manipulate this. This is coming direct from their website, so I can't show you the difference. But great move the other day, obviously, re-signing him at 17.25 and the $9 million cap hit that it is this year, saving us a tremendous amount for this year's cap, giving us a lot more room to work with. But every other name on here is right. And you could see the Rodgers cap hit happens to be very good this year. The dead money is almost insane. If we were to release him or he would retire, whatever it may be, over $66 million. But assuming that everything calms down, all the rhetoric around what he said or didn't say in private conversations, whether he is going to be the vice presidential nominee or not, and focus back on football, whatever it may be, this is a good cap hit, $17 million for this year. That's a nice job. John Franklin Myers, he's still our cornerstone edge, if you think about it, or defensive lineman on top of Quinnen. He's one of them, certainly. A pretty good cap hit as well. What jumps out at you are the two names back-to-back, Allen Lazard and Zach Wilson. Again, look at the dead money we're going to have to incur when Wilson gets off this team one way or the other. Talking about trading Allen Lazard, he's out there being dangled right now because he can't really produce as a wide receiver too. Look at his dead money or what he's costing us in cap. These are another couple bad contracts. So again, if you want to get on JD right now, this is what you're looking at, is what he's done in the dead cap money for the past couple of years. And those two contracts alone, DJ Reed more than likely is probably going to get renegotiated. Think about what his cap hit right now is against the team, or what his dead money is against the team, but specifically that cap hit at almost $16 million, probably going to get renegotiated, opening up a lot more room. Franklin Myers is another candidate for that to happen. Everybody else is kind of as they are. Tyler Conklin, I happen to think that's a pretty good number if Rodgers comes back. He's going to be a big weapon in the offense for him, and he'll start to look like a very good number. Look at Sauce already. In just his third year, he's going to cost over $9 million. I mean, that's what happens to the rookie contracts, especially guys taken in the top five. They blow down up there. But again, you look at the rest of what the cap is, and we're pretty high in the number at this point, even though the cap is raised so much for the year. But, these numbers aren't so bad, except for that Lazard and Wilson contract. But it's the dead cap money that really killed us against the cap. Just a tremendous 13% hit, and it's going to get even higher when Wilson is off the team. So again, what does this mean? Well, it means that JD is operating about the offensive line, about the wide receiver, about a safety, and bringing another edge into the fold based on all these numbers. And this is where the discourse needs to come back to. Everybody out there on Twitter screaming about, why didn't we get Keenan Allen, for the 4th round pick, or Deontay Johnson or whatever. I mean, think about what these guys cost, specifically Allen. $5 million bonus plus an $18 million salary. Where were we fitting $23 million this year alone as a one-year rental, or what he may or may not have cost to keep on the team another 2 years after the fact? Just wasn't happening. Didn't make sense. He's got to operate. I'm talking about JD now, inside the cap. And not only does he have to operate for what's going on with 2024, he's got to think about what's going on now for 2025. This is what's coming down the pike. Obviously, Zach Wilson below his Aaron Rodgers number there, you're going to see is going to be gone. But look at what Rodgers is going to cost in 2025. This really means more than anything else, we need this guy on the team the next 2 years. He has to be the quarterback. He's got to be the cornerstone quarterback for 2024 and specifically 2025. Look what happens if he is or he isn't. You got $51 million as a cap hit if he is on the team, and if he's not, he's almost $50 million in dead money, which, of course, we could spread out over time if we had to, if he wasn't on the team in 2025. But you want him on this team, certainly, because a lot of the other dead money is going to go away by 2025. And that's a big thing to consider. And certainly Zach Wilson will be off. He won't count against that. But Quinnen is going to be what he is at $21 million against the cap a couple years. Franklin Myers, and again, he's probably a candidate to restructure his contract, and he's still producing at a pretty good level. We're going to keep him around for a couple more years. This is a very good signing when JD did just a couple of years ago. What Tucker starts to bloat up to, if Elijah Barrett-Tucker at that point, but man, Lazard, you're seeing that number again, what he's going to cost. Yeah, the dead cap money looks a lot better in 2025, certainly, but you don't even want to think about having that dead cap because of the guys we've got to sign after the fact. But you're really, again, looking at what he's going to cost in just a couple of years. So the question is he going anywhere? He's getting dangles in the trade? No, more than likely. His contract really prohibits that. Who's going to want to pick this up this year or for the coming years unless he completely renegotiates? And why would he? The man got paid, a lot of it guaranteed. I mean, this is it. He's our guy. He's got to be wide receiver 3. He's got to be wide receiver 4. And he's got to work with Aaron Rodgers, and we want to see him produce. So expect him, no matter what happens, to be wide receiver 3 and 4. Again, we're going to fill out that slot receiver position. And with Gibson, we're going to fill out that wide receiver 2, but we've got to do it on a budget. This is why you're seeing the moves being made that JD is doing. Again, moving on down the list, the zero line, DJ Reed, who's going to be probably somebody that we change up in just this year. I would assume at some point you're going to hear he's been redone. Maybe even Michael Carter's been redone, because this is going to open up more cap so we could sign that left tackle or sign that wide receiver, because one of those is coming in the draft and one of those is coming in free agency. It would be hard to do both in either, but that may also be the case. You never know. They surprise us, but that's 2025. And already, and the number you're not seeing here on the screen, the commitment for 2025 is already over $200 million, the cap on our books. You got to think about that. Again, that'll look a little bit different when Zach Wilson is off, but we're already there. We're already over $200 million, especially with Rodgers and what he bloats to next year. So a lot of the decisions being made are being done with this in mind. Let's go to 2026, where we're only at $100 million. And this is where it starts to look good. And this is where we're going to give Joe Douglas a little bit of credit, because he's manipulating enough where it's going to look good in 2 years and we're not beholden to too many guys. Rodgers still there with a pretty good cap hit at that point. Whether he plays another 3 years, we'll see. But if he's off the team, he's not off or he's off the team, and then he's got the dead cap at $35 million. You could spread that out over time, and it's not going to hurt us that badly. It was built in that way, but man, he must be on this team producing in 24 and 25. Quinnen Williams' number still looks pretty good, and he's a cornerstone guy. Lazard, again, you're seeing that number, but the cap hit at that, or the dead cap at that point, is below $5 million. He certainly wouldn't be on the team, not at 2025. We might have taken the dead cap hit because all the other guys are gone at that point. We won't have too much other dead cap money next year. But McDonald, you see, he starts to blow because he was the first round pick, and John Franklin Myers, his number comes down a lot. So this is going to be very interesting what's done. So what does this all mean? I mean, what are we looking at? Again, let me put these charts up one by one before we talk about where we're heading and the direction we're going. Okay, so once more, you've got the dead cap money that's sitting on the books this year. It's counting for 13% of our cap. We are in the top 6 currently in the NFL for all teams in dead cap money. The top 4 guys specifically that you're seeing on the list were very bad signings that you would expect it to produce. Maybe not Dwayne Brown this year, but the other 3 for sure you would expect and hope that Laken Tomlinson's still on the team, Uzomah's still on the team, and Lawson's still on the team producing at a high level. Never happened. They're gone. So, and Zach Wilson about to be added to this list, another $11 million one way or the other. Then you've got what you see here in front of you, which is this year's cap, well over $200 million already. We only have, a certain amount to play with at the moment to bring in this wide receiver we're all clamoring for, to bring in the offensive lineman we're all clamoring for. And by the way, consider that when the rookies all come in this year's draft, you better keep another $11 million just for them. That's what it's slotted for. You also have to have your practice squad players. That's another couple $1 million. So a lot to consider here with what JD's working. He's really up against this until he restructures a few more guys. I think DJ Reed, John Franklin Myers are big candidates, and they're still producing at a high level. I'd love to have Reed on for a longer period of time. Michael Carter isn't costing us a ton, so everybody wants him to be redone. He just needs to be redone because he's good, and he's got to get paid at some point if you want to keep him on the team. Obviously, our slot cornerback. So that's what we're looking at. That's 2024, already well over $200 million. 2025, already well over $200 million. But again, some of these are going to be restructured. You're not going to see Zach Wilson on the team here. Probably at that point, AVT gets restructured, whatever it may be. He's got to come out and show that he can still play and be a very high producing right guard. But that's where we're at. That's why we're seeing what we are. And then again, here's 2026, what we're all leading to, right? Because the chart we're going to talk about in just a moment is what we're trying to do. And we're going to really grade JD on what he's done based on this. This is how I look at it. What's left to do this year? So 2024 needs versus our future cornerstones. So let's just start with the needs for a moment. And again, if you want to be posting any comments or questions, we can get to this afterwards. I'm very happy to do so. But before we do, let's just really tackle on this. Speaking of tackles, left tackle. So who's left? And what is this really going to cost us, right? You've got the top end guys, Tyron Smith or Trent Brown. Certainly Tyron Smith is the most exciting of it. I put the word fortune next to him because either of those guys will cost us a small fortune. You've got to restructure a couple of contracts that we've got right now and then pay these guys with the expectations that they're going to be here for 2 to possibly 3 more years doing what they do in the left tackle position as good as they do, especially protecting Rodgers over the next 2 years on the blind side. Again, hopefully expecting that he plays for us at a high level another 2 years, and especially because what we saw on the cap situation, he really needs to be. Below him, you've got Donovan Smith, David Bakhtiari, and now Andre Dillard entered the mix today, which is a really interesting name that got dropped down in Tennessee. Wouldn't be surprised if we got any of those guys now on a 1-year deal, on a much cap-friendlier deal, but that still opens the door to probably draft right below. You're still going to have to draft somebody to take over their place the following year, but if you don't even get those guys, you're just going to draft one of them right now. We've talked about this before, but Joe Alt to me is the only name that's out there who's pro-ready to take over left tackle. Probably a lot of guys who can handle the right tackle position, but Olu scares me to do left tackle day one. Alt probably could, but now you're probably trading up if you're going to get that. And man, that's hard to think about, trading up out of the 10th pick. We should be trading down and recouping capital to get back into the second round. The wide receivers of it all. Tyler Boyd and Mike Williams are expensive, my friends. Again, you're going to have to restructure to get one of these guys on the team. They're going to want money. Not the money that everybody else is getting, not Calvin Ridley money, but once more, if you're all upset that we can go out and get Keenan Allen in a 4th-round pick, $23 million this year, nobody's doing that. We've got to be at the max, probably $12 to $14 million this year for one of these guys to fill out that wide receiver 2 position. There's Odell Beckham Jr. He's still going to be expensive. This guy thinks he's still producing at a high level. Wide receiver 2 should get a multi-year deal, wants to get paid again. He got paid by the Ravens last year. I doubt that he's going to get what he wants this year, but who knows if he's coming back. It was not a good negotiation. It didn't end well last year. Some things were said in the media on both sides that weren't great. So we're sweet spotting back down to guys like Hunter Renfrow, KJ Osborne. Yeah, this is more than likely who we're probably going to end up with, and we're going to have to fill out a wide receiver room that may also come in the draft. And again, if we recoup that 2nd-round pick, if we could trade down, we're starting to fill out something different. So you're not just relying on Herb Charles or Jason Brownlee. But again, Lazard is just a name. It's an albatross. The contract's an albatross. You better hope he comes back, plays all 17 games, can block downfield like he's supposed to, and doesn't have to do much else than fly down the field and just catch bomb after bomb over 20 yards from Rodgers, which is what they were doing previously. And if he gives us that, I think we'd all look back and say, yeah, he's getting paid a little too much. But if the 6-8 touchdowns get put up this year and he's putting up, 6 or 800 yards, it will be worth it. But that's the only way. But that's how you're going to have to fill out this rotation. Or again, you draft, won't break any banks, or we're trading again, right? Not a Keenan Allen, not for guys like that who are costing the money. It's got to be the right trade. What does Cortland Sutton cost us? And what is he going to cost us to have on a 1-year rental? Something like that. You're not going to pay T. Higgins all this money. We just can't. You saw from the previous charts the reasons why we can't do this in the dead cap money and the cap casualties we're dealing with right now. We still need to bring in this third edge guy. We let Huff walk, okay? And obviously we've got Franklin Myers is still producing where he does on the edge and on the inside. You got Jermaine Johnson, who looks like an absolute stud and Pro Bowler. You got Will McDonald. We're going to see what he produces for us, but you're going to bring this other guy. And I've been calling it all week, right? You've heard me for 4 straight days. Jadeveon Clowney. Want to see him come in. Well, guess what? He's meeting with us next week. He's going to be an expensive 1-year rental, but he'd be worth it because you need it because it's such an important position, but at least it's only 1 year. Not going to hurt us moving forward. Emmanuel Ogbah, less expensive, an interesting name that got let go by Miami. What's he going to cost us? Or Kyle Van Noy, very affordable, 33 years old, had a good year in Baltimore last year when he's just a rotation guy. We're a rotation team. Why not bring him in? He can pin those ears back, get to the quarterback, and then safety. More than likely, all we're looking at this point is just getting Ashton Davis back on a friendly deal. We talked about it yesterday. Jarek Bernard Converse is the name on the team that no one is talking about. He was hurt all last year. He's a converted cornerback to our safety. He's more than likely just going to be our third safety behind Clark, behind Adams, and then we're going to have to bring in a guy like Ashton Davis or somebody like him who's as cheap as him. That's what we're looking at. So this brings us all the way over to the right side. Did Joe Douglas do what he needed to do so we can be set up 2 years from now when the Rodgers run is over and we're trying to replenish? That's the big question here, right? Because these are the cornerstones of any NFL team right now. Quarterback, left tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, defensive tackle, and edge. Those are the premium positions. They're the guys that got to get paid. Are we in a good position to do this? And you know what? I think the short answer is yes. He's done a very good job in doing this. Sort of. You've got quarterback. Again, assuming the distractions somehow fade away with Aaron Rodgers, he does come back healthy and plays at even an 80% plus level than he has in his previous career. You'd be very happy having him a quarterback over the next 2 years at the price that we do. Left tackle, again, it depends. Can we make a stunning, great decision this year? Can Tyrone Smith come in, get paid, and be here for 2, possibly 3 years without getting hurt and still playing? Or can we get that high draft pick that matters moving forward at that position and become a cornerstone? Perhaps we can. Wide receiver, he did it. He won. He got Garrett Wilson. That is an absolute cornerstone. Wide receiver 1 moving forward. Cornerback, same thing. This guy is back-to-back All-Pro. Unheard of. He's amazing. Sauce Gardner, love this kid, right? He is a cornerstone quarterback. Defensive tackle, you did it. You made it. You've got the 4-year deal on a good deal with Quinnen Williams. He was affordable for what he was. The cap went up in a huge way. It was a good contract, and he got paid what everybody else essentially did last year. So those 3 positions alone were fantastic. Call it 4, because you went out, you got Rodgers. The expectation he gives you another 2 years based on what he said. Now the edge. Will Jermaine Johnson continue to ascend and play at a high level? One of these guys has to work out and be your cornerstone, but you've got to pay these guys, right? That's the other part of what's coming up in a year or 2. Renegotiating with Garrett Wilson, giving him his money, Sauce Gardner giving him his money, Quinn's already been paid, Rodgers is already penciled in for 2 years. What is Jermaine Johnson going to demand? What's Will McDonald going to demand? Because, again, you can keep playing the game of bringing in a guy like Davian Clowney or Agba or Kai Von Noy year after year after year on 1-year deals to fill out that third position who's coming in. Just John Franklin Myers have another 2 or 3 years left after we renegotiate, and he gives us the cap space that we need. But this is where you're really grading Douglas. I mean, he gets it. I mean, he does have a vision of what this team should look like moving forward with the cornerstone players. This is important for us, so I want to give him his due. He drafted well in doing that. The miss was obviously left tackle. Becton was supposed to be that guy. We all know what happened there. He's been trying to figure it out ever since, and doing other things affordably on, through the offensive line. We'll see if Tippmann can really be the big player at the pivot. If you can just anchor him there and build around him over year after year, if AVT can remain healthy and be that guard that we need him to be moving forward, it'll all work out in that respect. But again, this is tough pickings going all the way back to this dead cap money one more time of what we're looking at with these top 4 guys, and the fact that Wilson is going to have to be added to this. Huge miss on that. So not great, but that is why when we're back here looking at where are the signings, where the signing for tackle, where the signing for wide receiver, we're all at least understanding now why this is taking so long, what's really at stake, and why JD has to maneuver inside a very small window here. We just can't go out and get all these guys that everybody expects or wants them to. It makes more sense to me that you're going to get either 1 or 2 of either Jadeveon Clowney and pay him to be that edge guy and fill him out with lower level wide receivers to fill out the receiver room. So Rodgers throwing the edge, Garrett Wilson and everybody else that we can afford on this team, or you're not going to get a Clowney or Agba, and you're going to get maybe Tyler Boyd or probably Mike Williams and throw the $12 or $15 million going to cost in a 1-year deal for him, while he's the bridge to somebody else, and maybe we can draft somebody if we can recoup back in the 2nd or 3rd round. Again, I'd like to see us take a right tackle who could potentially play as left tackle in this draft. I'd like to see us trade down to do that, somewhere between 11 to 15 or 16, and get back our 2nd round pick. This to me makes the most sense. Why? Because you look over on that right side of the column there, he did fill out what he needed to do on the future cornerstones. They are already on the team for the most part, besides the left tackle position. But you can make a good decision here and get that guy right now. Possibly Joe Alt, though it's going to cost too much to trade up to get him. Hopefully you pick well and get somebody else. Okay, that does it for this week. Week 1, 5 straight days of Jets football. I think it's been a very interesting week, certainly interesting around Aaron Rodgers. I've spoken a tremendous amount about him, and I'm not going to do any more today. You can go back and watch the other videos if you haven't seen them. I appreciate all of your time. I appreciate week 1. We'll be back and do it a little bit more next week. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. This is AM Pfeffer for NYJ Ground Crew.